there's a little bit of a new series or mini series of a kind that I've wanted to start recently. And some of these things I want to discuss or mention or tell story about have their place in the constellation of circumstances and situations and things like this that have built up the framework spiraling into exactly where we are right now in this universe. A little bit about myself. By the time I reached my early 20s or so, I didn't really go away to college. I stayed local in my city in New York. And I didn't really, truly, as a result of this, fully immerse myself in a kind of party lifestyle to the same degree that other people did. I got the party sort of out of me a little bit more slightly later in my life, really in my 20s and even in my 30s, early 30s. As a result of that, most college kids who go away, they get a little bit more exposed on average, at least back then at the time. I was growing up, this is the 2000s, and right now the world's a little bit different. It's interesting. If you talk to the average 15, 18, 20-year-old now, it is interesting. Somehow just 10, 15 years of difference is a lot. Like, kinda, we weren't even close to being or experiencing the sort of things sometimes that the modern younger adults now have going on. But here's the point. As a result of this, I didn't have tremendous alcohol and drug exposure. I had a little bit to a point, but not so much. They say that weed is a gateway drug, of course, right? And, I first started trying a little bit of this weed, very late high school, a little bit in college, but, really, I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've smoked weed up until a certain point, up until my early 20s, actually. So probably, in that regard, I was a little bit above average, I guess you could say, in terms of converging towards, a state where, like, you're somebody who's done nothing ever. Now, so this is important, slightly. We get up to a point in my sort of societal development. Of course, I ended up in a very fateful, one could say, fateful coma. Really, my life is two main blocks. There's the person who, bears my full name. That person who had a narrative of the story, the ordinary life, pretty much for the most part, a little unusual, but largely also pretty normal. That was pre-27 years old. That was pre-April 8th, 2016. And, they say that the thing about the age of 27, where everybody dies or has the near death or whatever, it's always at 27, as is sort of famously known. Yeah, it literally happened to me that same way, which is funny. But now, before that coma, there's the pre-coma version of my life, and there's the post-coma, which is, it's not even the same. To say that it's not even the same world is not enough. Is not enough. I woke up. The guy who was alive back before 2016, who people knew, that guy's dead. He never woke back up. Just so that we're clear and we understand and we're on the same page, right? A lot of people who knew me experienced that. Really. But regardless, I may share a little bit more about this. But for now, a little bit more about where my life was going sort of early 20s and really focusing on one specific event that happened. You see, so weed now is this gateway drug, and I drank a little bit too, but it was so I think light, even compared to average. Probably, again, I could count on one hand the number of nights or days, maybe two hands, that I've had drinking up until my early 20s, close to early to mid 20s. I'll say a little bit more about that, but the point is this: a lot of people, when they eventually get into more and more of the party lifestyle, they tend to transition from one thing to another thing a little bit more lightly. But here's what's interesting. One day, a friend of mine who was significantly older than me at the time, someone who, along with me and two others, comprised the core of a sort of men's group that we formed back in the day, just like a reading book club, basically, or whatever, kind of nice. But anyway, this older guy, him and his girlfriend at the time, ended up becoming married afterwards. They invited me out to experience something that I never really experienced before, and I heard only a little bit about. These are these Native American shaman ceremonies, you see. Now, the same friend, he invited me out to two of these. A guy who drank a handful of times in his life prior to then, not even necessarily to avoid it consciously, just the nature wasn't so much to be around all with that. You smoked weed a couple to a handful of times up until the early 20s. Now you take from that and you put that guy into a situation where, hey, you know what? We're going to have you participate with us if you want. I was eager. I said, I'm interested in the details. I'd like to come. Let's find out. I said, you only smoked weed a handful of times. Now you're jumping up to peyote. What an interesting experience. We had an indoor, true Native American ceremony. 40, 50 people there sitting in a circle, led by a proper shaman. What an interesting experience. Very interesting. And the peyote did a little bit, but one can't really articulate so much what it did. It had some slight effect, but, I don't know. I don't really know what that was all about. So we go back, and not long after that, the same friend invites me out again. This time upstate. This time to a proper Native American ceremony in a larger house up in the mountains with dozens of people participating. And this time, this is not so much a peyote ceremony, which I guess in that framework isn't really the, I don't want to be inaccurate, but maybe this is like the weed or the relatively lighter thing, because people, some of you may have heard, of course, about DMT. And not just DMT, the pure molecule, which can be smoked. It doesn't last very long unless you take a specific inhibitor with it or whatever. But if you do your research, you watch your documentaries about this stuff, it's not so much about the DMT, but really it's about the ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, the special South American, and we don't know if it's South American, Native American, Brazilian, something like this. Those cultures really put together, through unbelievable intuition, a specific combination of natural plant substances that grew 100 miles apart or something like this, that they went and they needed to put it together exactly so that one is taken along with the other so that it preserves the effect of the original by having the other be a blocker of the thing that would otherwise break down the first original thing. And like this, they call that ayahuasca. This is the active ingredient of DMT, of course. The thing that is released in very tiny quantities at most when you sleep. This is what accesses the dream state, and this is only a partial experience. When you dream, your deepest, wildest dreams is the partial glimpse or access for what the fuller DMT release is like, which often is said or understood to take place during death and or near-death experiences. It gets a way fuller release, and this DMT really opens up the portals. I mean, words can't even really do it justice. So, you know, I for a moment thought about featuring some of the other videos into my video here that covers what DMT is like, and ayahuasca in particular as the natural version of this source of this DMT. I remember this was one of the most profound experiences in my life. If you recall that scene in The Matrix where you're in the Matrix your whole life, and then all of a sudden it's and you get the cord taken out from behind your neck and you wake up in the real world. Let me tell you, that absolutely is right on. That is right in the right direction. That sort of archetype, or that motif, that's really what it was like. I remember going back after that happened. I told a handful of people about the deeper details of that whole experience. Probably it was an hour and a half story that I got to tell most excitedly to. I think the best version of that story I might not be able to fully recreate here, and it was a long time ago now, but it was meaningful. I shared it with a girl I was dating at the time, briefly, but words can only do so much. But I want to share a little bit. I want to share enough of what that experience was like, because something ended up being shown to me in that dream state. No, I can't call it a dream state. We're not sleeping there. We're literally awake, conscious, with a super-induced, transduced gateway. You understand, right? Hey, you could do a little more research on your own. Go check out any of that. There's a whole boatload of information you can find. So this is a very relatively light level summary. I'll never probably get to be able to say the whole depths of that story the way I perhaps told it to that one girl that one night shortly after returning from upstate. You know, maybe I told a second person also a slightly more condensed version of that same story. It's interesting. It's an oral concoction mixed together. You take it, you drink it. It's like prune juice. You swallow it, you sit down. 10 minutes later, the whole reality around you starts crystallizing into fractal patterns. And then you think you're sitting on that pillow, on that floor, in that, you know, spot by the wall or whatever, next to everybody around you that's having the same exact experience. They're called up one by one. They have that served to them properly within the religious ceremony, within that framework. And we're all opening up that gateway together, each with his own personal access and going through their own thing. So what was it like? It was as if my whole life was a movie that I was sitting in the movie seat for, and you don't realize it's so to speak, just the movie or just the Matrix until you have a hand lay on you, on your shoulder, and go, hey, excuse me. And you look up and you break attention from the movie and you're like, huh? And you look up and, oh no. And you zoom out, the meta setting, it's something completely different. Many near-death experiences that you see on YouTube convey something pretty much roughly similar. People who nearly died and come back say it's exactly like this, that this whole thing is just pretty much almost a projection, and you really have the truer reality back out there when you leave this thing that you see when you're looking around here. This is just the training zone or the loading zone, or the, you know, there's other theories. I have my own, of course, on what this is all really basically, but whatever, we're all in the same layer here for now. Perceived differently by everybody, of course. Once that fractal crystallized framework of vision started crisping, like fractal crystal pyramids, crispinating everything in front of you, and then it's just gone. It falls away as if you are standing and the whole earth beneath your feet were to just begin to drop and drift away, continue in its orbit, while you remain in that space, levitating in space, and it's just taken away from you as it continues to go around the sun, getting pulled away, just gone. But you're still floating in space in the universe, exactly where you are, alone now, hovering out in the cosmos, though you're still in the same place. It is as if the hand of God took me back and pulled me back. It said, you think you understand or see anything in this life so far? That this is what you call home? That this is the master framework of what you perceive? Let me bring you out. Got taken back, all the way back. Not just in through the cosmos, but back way out from the cosmos to break out into another dimension, if it could be said like that. More details could be said. I also get the feeling I'm genuinely forgetting at least some of the significant aspects. There was quite the narrative. I remember, you know, it's like trying to remember a dream you had that really left a strong impression on you that you just had even a week or 2 weeks ago. You'd remember every detail of the dream. But, you know, let's say I had a dream that detailed and impressive, but it was 15 years ago. Still, you're not going to remember every detail, even though it was as profound as it was at the time you had it. So maybe this is a lot like that. In that regard, at least, but truly different, something beyond profound. To say profound is an understatement. You can't use human language to describe the supra reality of it. This is the hologram. Trust me. That's what everybody tells you when they get back from near-death experiences. By the way, I have other stories too. All the kinds that I've really only shared here and there in a spotty way, but I'd like to document these now, put these up somewhere so that it's around, it's floating, and each of these in isolation don't mean very much. Certainly at the time these things happened, it didn't mean very much, but the more that you place them together in juxtaposition, the meta framework starts bringing more sense into everything. And that'll become more apparent if I continue on as I may likely do. Become more apparent. Now, I'm in the other dimension. I'm being brought through gates of, you could say, yeah, gates of understanding or gates of experience. Interaction with, you know, I don't want to have to just say like interaction with God, because that's saying a lot. And it's more true, that which I just alluded to, if I say that very same thing or convey it, but without saying anything with any words at all. Just, yeah. to say nothing gets closer to the matter. I'll cover the two most important things that I do still prominently remember, and which were the two most significant aspects of the experience. Mind you, I only took one shot of this magic prune juice, the ayahuasca, really. People around me took 2, and some took 3, because they were doing rounds of reinvitation. I figured it's my first time only. I think a lot of those people had more than their first time, so they would go deeper. People who were there for the first time were recommended only to take 1, unless they really felt exceptionally bold. I said, let me get calibrated to 1. Maybe I'll be back in the future. We'll see. But one was enough. Exactly what needed to be shown and seen, I find, was shown. So what was it? It was a glimpse into 2 things. I didn't know, number 1, what it was. Many years in the future now, one interpretation we could get back is to apply to that would be to say, here's what Geula energy, redemption energy, in the future perfected world would look like if this were a perfected universe, a beautiful, loving planet. But even when I say these words, I self-read the words I'm saying. It doesn't even come... Okay, human language is not enough. Okay? The only people who might understand what I'm talking about is anybody who's done, like, MDMA, ecstasy, that kind of drug. And not just, like, a little bit, but, like, really had the breakthrough, so to speak, on ecstasy. Famously or well-known clips online, a person would describe MDMA and its effects like in a documentary covering it. One of the best descriptions I've ever heard. Imagine yourself surrounded by everybody you have ever loved in your life who loves you just as much, fully, all surrounding you, all hugging you, giving you complete full love while you're sitting in a bathtub. While you're sitting in a bathtub full of puppies. If you can imagine that, right? Surrounded by everybody you love, hugging you while you're in a bathtub full of puppies. Just chronic, that being the experience. That's a pretty great description, actually. It's a great description. It comes very close to describe with, like, words what that's like experientially. Of course, the experience is beyond that too. I had never tried MDMA. I happen to know from happenstance what that experience was like, but by this point in my life, I'd just done some weed and then this Native American ceremony and crazy DMT or crazy ayahuasca. That's an extreme, or it's a large jump up. I never knew what MDMA was like, but I could tell you now in hindsight, now that I narrate this story, I had that same MDMA peak opening of just that full loving experience was there. And I experienced it. And it was funny, I actually was in a bathtub. So it's funny, I remember a guy saying about it's like being a bathtub full of puppies. I was in a bathtub, and it was everybody in my family, an extended family, hugging me, giving me complete love. Interesting, in that situation, including people who in actuality, in real life, we don't get along, really. We don't get, not in this manifestation, right? Not in this narration. That's not how the script was designed for this reality, for this run through. But, all for a reason. But, jumping dimension into the ayahuasca universe zone of the real universe, really. No, it was like those same souls were called back, brought into that. It's like, no, listen, first of all, just know everything is love, and regardless of how things are going down there on that earth, and when you come back to that earth, sadly, because of the earthly constraints and limitations, it's not going to be this, but just know, in the spirit, this is the center of the galaxy and universe forever. It's all that. Everything you see out from you comes from the center heart of that. And it's pure. It's that. That's everything. And largely that's the center balance point that we're looking to bring this earthly realm back to with tikkun, as is known in the Jewish traditional framework. It's tikkun. It's tikkun olam. It's the repair of the world, the process of repair that we actively participate in, which is hybrid spiritual and physical, to basically say. I was in that bathtub, being hugged by everybody, loving me fully. Like, I can't even say the word to, like, I know I'm short selling it. You know, I'm keenly aware of the issue of using strong words that people don't bring full resonation into. You know, people who don't really know love, don't really know God, will say words like love and God in their speech flow. But when they say the word, you could hear in the dip of their inflection that they remove their consciousness energy from it, and it gets like it leaves like a pale word because they themselves don't have full exposure to it. So they'd be like, and you know, when he said that he really, really loved me, you see, it's like something went missing there for a second. Or, you know, I'm really going to pray to God now. Something's gone. There's a void there. You're off. Okay? I avoid that. But when I'm having to narrate this now, I hear and feel it's like the language here is not sufficient for me to express what I know. And because I know it's insufficient, it's like revealed, it's betrayed in how I'm talking about it now. So it's so interesting. That was part one. It was like to go into like a, you know, if we're leaving the earthly realm, I don't know, it's just the halls of the purgatory or heavenly dimensionalities stacked up through the different heavens or planetary cosmic orbits. Something like this, right? Dimensions really is a good way to put it. Go to that zone, get reloaded with the core concept of love. Whoever didn't give it to you, if you didn't have enough of that in your life, this is basin number one. You come, you bathe in here, remember what this is. You will never forget that feeling and experience, and I haven't. And know that as imperfect as this world is, it isn't the case that love is not real. It's there underlying everything, even if you can't see it or feel its full expression. And let it be. For now. Why was I shown that? Maybe different people have some version of this happen too. One can apply any interpretation to this over time. But imagine if one tastes a sort of pristine perfection of a certain kind, you know, let's say you never knew good steak, you ate burger, you know, whatever, some bad hamburgers your whole life, and then you won the lotto and you're the only person in your town or community, just to make something up, who gets taken to a real, you know, 5-star, 5.5-star culinary mecca somewhere in like France, and you're eating the best organic French cuisine, steaks, best stuff on the planet. You experience this, and then you're sent back to your world. You're like, what is this? I thought this was life. You tasted this is death. This is unacceptable. Why are you people settling for this? It can't be this way. You people can't be living this way. No. You don't know what it is even that you are missing out on. This isn't supposed to be this way. I woke up. I understand that analogy with the food and the great steak are like this. That doesn't even come close to what it was to experience like, hey, by the way, unconditional full mode love, here's what that is. We're giving it to you, being given authentically or modeled to you that you experience this here, just know that this is real. It exists. Where was I taken to after this? I restored consciousness a little bit more, or awareness of the room. You're always conscious, and yet it's like when you deep prophecy, your eyes are rolled back in the movie, and you're awake, but you're double overlapping with whatever's going on, like a living dream, a living wakeful dream, while you're walking and awake, but with come back for the room temporarily. Everything's still pyramids, crystallized vision. It's like you could see the pixels of your retina becoming pyramid, crystal, fractal of everything you're seeing. You're like, what? This is you could see into the matrix almost literally. It's unbelievable. The quantum foam of the universe becomes pixelated to you that you could see it. Right? Come back for a moment, look around, other people are going through the thing, and then I come right back into the thing. Now let's get one thing clear. When we're brought into that Native American ceremony, the chief or chiefs, or multiple people there, are explaining, saying, we are interfacing right now, as is in accordance with our tradition, but also we're literally experiencing it. We know this is for real. We are interfacing with the serpent spirit. And it is this, they call it the grandmother spirit, but they also say it is the serpent spirit. And the serpent grandmother, basically put, is the one who interfaces with us and gives us this, and this is the role she's playing on this earth right now. It's to bring this out so that the effect is done. Okay, that's very basically, you could say that's my take or understanding on what they're trying to convey to us about that, right? At that time, I wasn't super religious, and probably, I'm not going to say should have known better, but I knew little enough that I got to be open to that and said, okay, sure, hey, everybody else is doing it, so why not? Well, with that understanding, I'll continue to describe what happens next after that first part of the actual, oh, by the way, this is love. We're sorry you didn't get to feel the fullness of this on earth. You might have gotten the closest to this with your father. Your father really loves you, approaching this convergence. And then other people are having other programming self problems that they're internally spiritually blocked. They're not giving it as much. But this is what it is. So let's simulate in the training zone everyone what that is from everyone. It's like, oh my God. Okay, so this is the center of the universe for real in the cosmic dimensionalities. Everything is out from here, and we're going to come back to here. Okay. Well, given this, let's see what else we can do. What's next in this journey? I'm taken to another zone, another dimension of sorts, but now this is all black. It's all black, and it's almost like for this scene or segment of the episode, I guess, is as if the whole experience of starting out where I was on planet Earth, on some state called New York and the mountains, and living, it's a human life. That's the narrative for this particular incarnation at this time for this creature. Right, you're living, you learn a language, I'm human, it's English, hello, Okay, the very cute stuff. No, we're getting taken back. It's time to see the most important thing that this entire experience is here to convey. To you, that is being conveyed to me, of course. To you, for you. This is the culmination, as was felt. This is the why. This is the aspect. You only took one shot, oh kiddo down there, so we can't show you more. We don't have the amplitude cranked up enough to show more. through the interdimensionality. So we can only go so far as to just get this one symbol across the matrices, whatever, to bring it through. So we have it like this. This will mean everything to you, and it will mean nothing to you right now, consciously. And for all you know, you'll see it, and maybe you'll spend the next 10 or 12 years of your life figuring out what was the significance of that scene, that was conveyed. What is the significance of this? Why is this what's happening or being shown or whatever? Side note, there's other experiences like this that I had, actually not too far away, time-wise. We'll save that for another video soon. But for now, it's this. I'm in the dark zone. I left that land or dimension of bathtub love, everyone loving you, and then you're pulled out here and said, now here's the culmination. I saw myself and it was as the serpent spirit showing simultaneously as 2 to 3 different things, and somehow it could be both 2 and 3. You know how things like that are when you're dealing with dreamscape / even higher, which is the DMT, or, you know, true spiritual, the full thing, the ayahuasca and all this. By the way, I'll mention this real quick too. The living Native Americans who were collecting this ayahuasca, they know they had to move hundreds of miles apart to collect the 2 plants. One grew one thing and had to be processed correctly, and then had to be combined with the other thing that wasn't even nearby in the rainforest. So when the white man scientists came down and were learning about this, they were being taught this and shown this, and probably given some of this stuff too, and they were saying, how did you people figure, like, you're a human being, you're walking around, the plants are plants, like, why should it occur to you, you don't have a book to read about this, what is it about the plant that you should know? How the hell did you know to go to that plant, do that, and then go 100 miles over there that it had to go be mixed, and that's what would open up the cosmic portal? That's a good question. The natives, even present day natives, I think this was caught on camera, because it's the ongoing tradition, plus they experience it too. And by the way, it sounds funny to modern Western thinking. Let me tell you, since I woke up from the coma in 2016, what I experienced, I completely understand fully, not logically, I experienced exactly what those natives stated was the insight as to what underlied their insight. They said, oh, it's because the plants told us. We go, we look at the plant, we touch it, it gives us the information we need to know, just through a direct interface. Funny white people, what are you talking about? You're numbed? Yeah, they are. We are. Largely, many of the modern world, really. Continuing. Alright, and it's a funny thing, I happen to be one of the extremely few human beings alive who completely understand, like, no. That's completely right. That's absolutely right. I absolutely relate to that super fully. Interesting to know if we go back. So what are the 2 or 3 things that are shown? It was a pharaonic headdress that was as or superimposed with a cobra snakehood spirit, but even more so than that, for that spirit wasn't dominant. Really what it was the pharaonic headdress that was the material embodiment of what would otherwise be anthropomorphized, I suppose, or what otherwise corresponds to the bird or eagle spirit specifically. So it's an eagle spirit with undertone of cobra snake programming, joint, but primarily the eagle formation as the headdress, fully pharaonic energy corresponding to that. Also corresponding to the modern version of this, as close as we get, that's the judge's head thing that like the English judges have as the tradition. We broke a little bit from that here in America, but from the Anglo side, that's that whole thing. It's that. It's being the judge. Okay? Judge, Pharaoh, serpent, eagle programming, and it was like an anointing upon the head, but not by oil, and perhaps oil itself signifies something else as outer worldly or spiritual, whatever. But it was as if an anointing of sorts by the placement upon my own head, that spirit brought down this pharaonic cap, pharaonic eagle headdress cap onto my head, that I should be shown, this is completed, rectified you, just so you know who you are, what this is supposed to mean, but that's all it could show you. Your name isn't only your name. You are justice. Without this headdress, you are just who you are by your name. With this headdress on, you are Justice John. Now it sounds a little bit, we use the word justice to title the highest judges within our own legal system here in the U.S., right? People, I didn't have an interest in law. I don't know nothing about law or a little bit, or soon after that I'd taken a sort of sovereign citizen interest for a while, which is a whole other side thing that's worthy of its own thing. I sort of belonged to that community for a little while. Not really seriously, but learning here and there various things. But when this was shown to me, and immediately after waking up to return to the conscious state to then, consider what I'm being shown, that was as far away from anything in my reality as possible. And people, you don't have future sight very well. Everyone says that, hey, if you could go back to when you were 18 and what you envisioned your life would be exactly like. And, 98% of the time, the actual human being's life doesn't end up looking anything like what you naively thought it would be. Yeah, so I'm there maybe 21, 22, something like this. 22 or 23, between 21, about 22, let's say. And being shown this, it meant nothing to me, had no energetic correspondence to me whatsoever, that I should consciously figure that makes any sense. So that's just like a cool scene from a movie, but I had no idea in the conscious, active, naive thinking and mode that I was still living in at a time as a human being. Again, pre-coma John, pre-superpower, superhero John. I just trusted that this was something from God or the realms to signify to me something, but I would just, that's all I could do is say, hey, okay, Pharaoh guy. But emotionally, I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll find out in 10 or 20 years what that means, and I won't even bother trying to figure any more than to leave it up to that for now, because I don't have any resonance, and I don't think I could ever come up with an idea, because I don't really care. That's how little of an affinity I had with the realism, so to speak, of that. Meanwhile, the spirit governs anything. Look for those who are tuned with the full reality of the narrative in my life and the life of our universe and exactly where the civilizational plot is going, how freakishly super, you couldn't come up with anything more spiritually active, accurate than that. Like, if people, it occurs to me now finally to kind of tell this story. This is one of about at least a few to several stories I'll be telling. Justice John. That's your completion. That's what you're supposed to be. That's all we got. Your gateway's transmission is closing now. We don't have enough amplitude. You're going to get that. You experience what the end result is supposed to be, which is the beginning result and the forever result, which is the bathtub full of love. That you have hardly any of that anywhere in the world. Most people don't really love, sadly. It's true. You see it. It's not non-existent. Real love in that experience might have been experienced perhaps in prior ages, decades, centuries. Pause for a moment. And once we brought back into consciousness fully and the thing wore off, took about, actually it was like, for like 1 to 3 hours. So really a lot was going on. Somehow those are the only two major themes that remain maintained and cohered, that we can translate it in human language today in the future, but time's an illusion too. That's why. Oh, by the way, I could kind of see into the future too, just to let you know. And it's almost extremely perfect. So, wow. You people had better come closer to the grapevine here and put your finger on the pulse, because maybe I know some things that really give you everything you need to know. Whatever. Okay. Pharaonic Eagle. What could that energy be? We'll leave it here for now. We'll see maybe another story next time soon.